All right, Kevin and Andrew, thank you so much for joining us on an episode of Meet the Franchise. Kevin, I'm going to start with you just so that we can give kind of the state of the union, what's going on with Mathnasium, how are things going, and then we'll dive into Andrew's story.
Yeah, appreciate it, Nick. Good to see you again. Brand is doing great. Lots of big milestones over the last couple of months, but year to date, strong financial performance, but also franchise development performance. We signed 51 new franchise agreements in the first half of 25, opened 42 new centers globally, including 31 in North America and 11 internationally. We celebrated our 100th international center in Hammersmith, UK, making the UK now the biggest brand or market outside of the US with 37 locations. We launched Romania recently as well. They have their first center open over there. And, elsewhere in the business, everything's strong, ranked on the Entrepreneur Franchise 500 list again this year. We're investing across the board, technology, expansion, customer experience. So all up and to the right.
Love it. I love setting the tone for this because obviously, Andrew, in your journey to becoming a franchise owner, you had to see some sort of supply and demand issue, and this is why I need to get in, and there's got to be a reason why you choose Mathnasium. So love that framework. Andrew, I want to spin over to you. As simple as this is, but I think it will frame the story nicely. How did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise backstory?
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's see. I started my career in tech and finance. That was kind of like my last, let's call it 5 to 7 years post school. I studied math and econ at Dartmouth in New Hampshire. I'm originally from Los Angeles, so I'd always wanted to come back to LA, spend time with my family, be back where the weather's nice 12 months a year. And to me, I think something that had really piqued my interest was not even just Mathnasium in particular, but like generally businesses that have like a positive community impact. Essentially are easy to scale and easy is the wrong word, but possible to scale and operate well. And essentially something that after spending some time in tech and kind of like, let's say more like traditional finance, something that honestly just like you can make a good living at and make sure that you're doing something positive and having a good impact on at the same time too. So to me, Mathnasium was something that like really checked all those boxes, and the way that I started was with a new territory in the hometown I grew up in.
All right, so you're hitting 2 years as a franchisee. Go back in that process, because obviously you're working in tech and finance, and now you make the decision that franchising seems attractive. You said you weren't necessarily looking at Mathnasium as one. You were more so looking at where you want to go. How do you land on Mathnasium? Why does Mathnasium go to the top?
Yeah, totally. So I think like if I take a step back, my goal really was always to be kind of an entrepreneur and do something on my own. Having worked for a few different companies, I always saw like, wow, this is really cool, but wouldn't it even be better if the work I did was directly tied to, my actual ownership of the business? So I wanted to find something like that. I am unfortunately, I don't think smart enough to build a product on my own. I didn't come from a background of like, 0 to 1. And as I looked at different businesses, I was like, okay, well, like how about 1 to 10, 1 to 100? And that's where franchising got in the picture, right? Here's something that's been done well before. We know the curriculum works really well. It's been around for, I call it like the 7-year test, right? Which you may have heard before. And Mathnasium had all those things. So when I was looking at different franchises, it didn't start with Mathnasium. I actually started with Mathnasium through Rourke, where I had a friend who had told me about the acquisition, and I was looking at different companies across Rourke. And to me, again, a lot of much smarter people than me probably at Rourke, and a lot of people doing a lot of work there saying, look, there's a lot of market tailwinds. They're smart guys. I'm sure they wouldn't invest in a company that wasn't growing. And they'd done a lot of the diligence there. So I was talking with my friends. He said, hey, have you checked out this specific company, Mathnasium? And spoke to me, right? Math and econ. And it's what I love doing. And I was a Kumon kid my whole life, but if anything, it actually helps a little bit more there because I had some experience. And from there, went down the rabbit hole, and here we are today.
Love it. Kevin, Andrew's story is a little bit different than the ones that we've gone through before. It tends to lean more towards heavier on the educator side, and now I'm finding my way into business than sophisticated on the business side. I land because I can see the business opportunity and obviously make a difference in the community. When you see someone like Andrew come into the mix, like it's a different persona than who some of the other franchisees have been. What is appealing about Andrew's story, and how does that lead into where you want to go with the business too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we talked about this before in the sense that, you know, both personas can be successful in the system, right? Whether it's an education background or education focused individual versus somebody from the business and finance world, or you know, in the corporate world. On the corporate and finance side, you know, these folks still have a passion for education and understand the mission, and, you know, buy into helping kids, you know, basically change their lives through math. But you know, they come at it with a different lens of, well, how do I key in on the key operating metrics and drive, you know, operational excellence, and, you know, how do I take the playbook that Mathnasium has developed and, you know, take it even further, right? And that's where Andrew really shines, and you know, what makes it very attractive from the franchisor's perspective is, you know, these folks aren't necessarily going to you know, revamp how you think about the pedagogy of delivering education, but where they can add tremendous value is, frankly, seeing around corners that maybe the franchisee or franchisor hasn't even thought about, from a, you know, hey, I'm at one unit, I'm trying to get to 2 units. What can you offer me? How can we partner together? Now I have 2. Now I want to get to 5. You know, what does that look like? How do I think about scaling and infrastructure and, you know, hiring needs, and making a playbook of my own that becomes scalable, right? So it's just a different set of issues that we're solving for, but it's great to partner with folks like Andrew from that type of background.
I mean, what I'm hearing is obviously the passion for the product or the service absolutely has to be a check mark. You're not going to buy into the business if you have this. But Andrew, you're getting into this business, and you're also looking at it with a business mindset. So your friend tells you from Rourke, says, go look at Mathnasium. You land on Mathnasium. I would imagine you're building a business plan in a different way than maybe a entry level franchisee. You're looking at it like, how am I going to scale this business? What you sign up with Mathnasium? What is the dream? What is the outcome and outlook that you want to have happen?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think when I started, I actually wasn't, I mean, people give me more credit than I deserve. I was just like, look, I want to try this out. Just one, to see if I could do it, and then 2, just to kick the tires because it seemed like a fun idea. I did always go in knowing, like, look, the end all be all isn't going to be me running one center. I just don't, you know, I'm not I kind of use the term like hobbyist or educator, right? Where I'm like, look, I would love to just be here every day. And to me, that wasn't it. But I also didn't have this grand vision of like, hey, like, let's scale to as large as we can. And, you know, I'm going to go all in. I just, you know, I figured, hey, like, one step at a time, let me try it. So when I started, I actually got really good advice from another operator, not in Mathnasium, but a similar system. And his advice was, look, if you do plan on scaling, don't build the business around you, right? Make sure that you're building the business in a sustainable way where you're putting the right people in place. And to me, that's like, you know, people talk about like one-way and two-way door decisions. And that was the biggest one-way door decision that I think he flagged really early on, where he was like, look, if you want to be that person that sits here and grows a center and like does well, like, I have no doubt you can do that, just like a lot of the other, you know, folks that do well in the Mathnasium world. But if you do want to eventually grow and give yourself the optionality to do that, then this is a big one-way door to identify now, build the systems, find the right people, invest in that early on so that you do have the option to scale down the road, which to me, I think I always wanted to have eventually. Whether or not I was going to is a different thing, but I think having the option is important.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, like I think about some of the smartest or, and that's a wide term, because a single unit franchisee could be a smart franchisee. But when I think about the more sophisticated franchisees that build a portfolio of locations, there's consistencies in what I'm hearing in your story, Andrew, is one, you take the emotional piece out of it, meaning you're still going to be emotional about the impact that you're having, but you don't ride the ups and downs so hard. You're more so looking at like, how do I set up good business infrastructure so that each unit can be managed on its own, which if you take any brand that is not a franchise that has multi locations, it's the same thing. Like the emotional piece is out. Let's focus on the structure of the business. Good business is good business. And then what I'm also hearing, which is also a hard thing for some franchise owners to do, is you said I'm not a hobbyist and I don't have to, like, I love the education component, but I don't have to be an educator. And so when you remove yourself from there, it obviously when you operate a business, you might make a little bit more money in the short term because you're offsetting an employee that has to fill that gap. When you can have the mindset of removing yourself, now you're looking at scale, and you might have to be involved in the business for a period of time to get to that scale period. But like you're on the pathway to being very sophisticated in franchising. So obviously when you're looking at the business opportunity, you said, I'm probably giving you more credit than I should in the process, but were there hurdles that you had to overcome to get to yes in the process, or was it more like eyes wide open? This is what I want to do. Let me figure out how I get in.
Yeah, no, no, it's cool that we're talking about this because I don't actually spend a lot of time reflecting. I think everything happens so fast that it's like, all right, we're go. Yeah, I mean, on the emotional piece, like if I go back to explain the decision, like I did want to have that for the first 6 months. I was in that like center every single day. I said, look, like if I'm going to hire people to do this, I actually want to know how it feels too, right? And I went from being a tutor, like I was an instructor in the first day when the first 4 kids came in, then I became a lead instructor where I helped the other instructors, and I became an assistant center director where I, kind of helped out the floor, and then I became a CD, and I did that for 6 months. And I will say, like those 6 months were probably, I will remember them forever. Like I had a lot of fun, like a lot of emotion highs, helping a lot of students and families, and understanding the business and the instructors and what you have to do every day. And like to me, that was a non-negotiable. I think that's what I was actually looking for. Was like, hey, I want to actually get in this and try it and see how it feels. And a part of me did consider like, hey man, like maybe I just do this. Like this is a great lifestyle. But I think you're like, to your original question, like, okay, like how did you, say like, I'm going to pull trigger on this is, well, to me, that's such a low barrier to entry, right? Like 6 months, you're paying yourself. To your point, I don't have to pay an operator. I'm taking home a salary, albeit a modest decrease from my previous salaries, but at the same time, my quality of life went up, and it was a new life experience, right? And for me, that was worth its weight in gold, right? Like, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to run a small business? Do you want to try it? And I loved it. So I figured, okay, well, like if I want to make this sustainable, then maybe we do have to build a process, build the structures around doing this. And now that I know how it feels, well, hopefully that helps me find other people who are also down to experience that and make sure that they're a part of it too. So yeah, I'd say it's a slow burn. I land on Mathnasium with like, let's call it 60-70% conviction. I said, hey, there's an open territory right near where I grew up. Let's try it out. And if that goes well, then, we'll go at it as hard as we can.
Kevin, I'm hearing 2 types of currency, and I want to put it in two different lenses. One is a franchise buyer comes to the table. The way that I would look at their currency or the depth of what they bring to the table, hustle and grit is a form of money, in my opinion, and then funds is a part of money. Like how much do those play into the decision to say yes to someone? And then what I just heard from Andrew is beyond that. He said it's worth its weight in gold that I have my life back to some degree, and now I'm in control of it. And so question one for you, Kevin, is how do you weigh those types of currency when finding the right person to award a unit to? Obviously, you guys had tremendous success. Over 50 units is awesome. So how do you weigh those things? And then secondly, to someone that's out there that is battling that pull of, I'm working so hard for someone else, what message do you want them to hear from what Andrew's saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think, all of those characteristics or currencies, as you aptly put them, are important. And, really what it comes down to is what do you underwrite as somebody's ability to effectively leverage where the core strengths are, right? Regardless if it's grit or other characteristics that they bring to the table. are they truly going to be able to lean into those areas so that, they can get the most out of the experience and they can be as successful as possible, right? It's certainly not a case where, you need all of the above. Like, you can over-index on just one characteristic, but if you're able to really lean into it, for example, let's say it's grit, you're able to just pound the pavement, and you're able to take lots of different leads and people that you meet on the street or at Trader Joe's or at a ball game or whatever, and convert them into enrollments. That's a perfectly good way to scale and build a sustainable business, right? So, it's really, are you able to identify just even one characteristic that you think somebody can really build upon to scale into, sustainable, profitable business? To your second question, I mean, look, franchising is a tried and true and tested model, right? And so everybody should go out and do their own level of due diligence. But we talk to people every day who are tired of working for the man, so to speak, or tired of the corporate grind, or trying to climb the ladder. And I think the Mathnasium option makes a lot of sense for a lot of people because, one, it's mission driven, right? And so the people that are attracted to Mathnasium aren't necessarily the folks that want to sell burgers or food, or worry about supply chain logistics for the different types of concepts out there. Two, the unit economics are appealing, right? Like, we have a very robust item 19, and there's a reason why we're so transparent with the financial model. And I think once somebody goes through the FDD, they can kind of weigh, well, here's what I'm dealing with today, and here's my income, and here's the Mathnasium opportunity. And after going through the numbers and hearing about the story, do I feel compelled to take the next step? And for the people that say yes, we convert very high percentage of those people that we meet and we that come to Discovery Day, right? And so I think it's really just doing your research and then figuring out if it's truly a compelling opportunity for you as an individual.
Kevin, one more follow-up question as I think through it, because obviously you get someone like Andrew in who is now mastering scale, and that's what he's working on now. In your opening statement, 50 units, you're growing in the UK, like, things are going really well. So on the flip side, I could potentially hear there's supply and demand issues, meaning the unit or the market availability is deteriorating. And so, one, how important is sense of urgency right now on where Mathnasium is? Is there still opportunity to get in and build a scaling business? If I'm hearing those things, what is your reaction to that, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, from my perspective, it's a bit of a misconception for our type of model. We're a service-based franchise model, right? And so, a lot of the times people are like, well, if I don't get a plus territory, does that mean I'm not going to be able to build a successful Mathnasium center? And the reality of it is, service-based franchises, the vast majority of the success factor has everything to do with the operator and how leaned in they are, right? Like, you can literally go out and run the multivariable regression and try to figure out, is getting the right real estate super important? Is having the right number of kids, within your territory super important? Or is it the income level? Or is it, X, Y, and Z other demographic or psychographic characteristics? And for service-based franchises like ours, all of those variables only explain about 20 to 25% of the correlation between, success, right? The other, call it 75%, is purely on the operator. And so when you go down and you look at our top 10, top 20 centers, there are towns in there that most people have never heard of, right? And that's not because they've identified some incredible, unknown territory or anything like that. It's because the operator is super leaned in and they know their community and the community knows them, and they're able to, proliferate Mathnasium in their community, right? And so there are still, literally hundreds of Mathnasium centers available, just in the US, but also in Canada and internationally as well. And so there is, a level of urgency from the sense that we always want to talk to you as early as possible so that you can get your preferred area. We don't like people necessarily trying to open a territory, an hour away from where they live, right? And so if you want to figure out if your nearby neighborhoods are available, yeah, there's a sense of urgency there. But from a saturation perspective, we're not there yet by a long shot.
Yeah, I mean, this is a philosophical opinion, and Kevin, you can react to it however you want. I mean, like
Right.
our drive time to our children's schools, which our kids actually go to private for-profit schools, is still like 25 minutes there and 25 minutes back. Those schools would say, we're not going to open up another school anywhere near it to you. I would love it to be closer. And so like, I understand like philosophically for a franchisee to buy a unit, they want protected territory. But like, in my opinion, there could be almost a Mathnasium every 2 miles to keep within that, what the future of life is turned into, which is like the 15-minute city. Like, a Mathnasium could technically be every 15 minutes from someone, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable argument. We've always taken the view that we should be fairly conservative in how we draw territories, so that people have ample room to scale, not just a profitable business, but a very, very profitable business. And so, our protected territories are drawn pretty big, and so we think that's mutually beneficial for both sides. But yeah, I agree with you, and especially in this day and age where families are time bankrupt more than anything else, right? You have to send your kid to Mathnasium and then to soccer and then to piano lessons. Like, you're traveling an hour back and forth for something that only lasts an hour seems like not a great use of your time. And so could certainly see a world where, the drive times definitely, play into the equation.
Andrew, back to you. What's the dream now? Obviously, like you said, I got into this with one. I'm figuring this thing out. Now I'm thinking about scale. How do you dream as it relates back to this side of your career or life or business or being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, no, I mean, these are all good questions I need to think about more often, but it's cool to reflect. Something that's like been really rewarding that I figured out, I didn't know going into franchising at all, but I've realized it's something I care a lot about that I didn't know I cared a lot about before is honestly just like working with staff, instructors, employees, like providing opportunities. I think that's something that's really cool about the Mathnasium like system itself is, we kind of have this thing of like, you can be a part-time instructor with a full-time impact, right? And I think that's something that's like really unique about someone going through college or, just graduating and finding a role. But to me, that's been the most exciting part is kind of like being able to create these opportunities for people who otherwise wouldn't have them. And then if I look at like kind of the systemic issues that, are in the public education system, and a lot of people who work in the public education system, I think like opportunities like this are really unique. If I look at my district manager now, he started as an instructor, right? So it's like, if I hadn't scaled from 1 center to 2 to 3 to 4, like he wouldn't have that opportunity, right? And to me, that's what kind of gets me excited is, wow, I can create a lot of really cool opportunities for people who deserve them and who know how to do these things better than I do. So that's been the new dream. I think that's something I figured out recently.
I love that statement because I think if you look at larger companies, they lose track of what you just said, which is where I think to both your and Kevin's statements, I mean, that's where the burnout factor comes when you turn into just a cog in the wheel or part of the widget and you feel that way, then you start looking for other things. And what you just said is, yes, I'm obviously in business to make money, but if I can build opportunity for those that are around me, then that's part of my dream, and that I can zoom out and say, wow, if I don't scale, I don't have the opportunity to do this. And that's really cool. I mean, and I think about the dream period, like obviously you are a younger franchise owner. That dream one is almost like, how do I graduate college? And so that run of 0 to 22 is a long time. And then if you look at how much you've accomplished, say in the last 7, 8, 9 years, it compounds so much different. Like if you were to look at just anybody that's watching this can go look at your resume and see like you've touched a lot of different things in your career, and now you're a business owner, and it's really cool to see that. And if I'm counting this correctly, six Mathnasiums currently.
Yeah. And no, I appreciate the kind words. I'm humbled by it. And I think honestly, I haven't done anything special, right? I think what Kevin said about grit is like probably the most important thing, where you just show up every day. And to your point on compounding, like it compounds like crazy when it's towards one thing that's your own, right? And I think I started to realize that over my career is like, wow, I compounded for 2 years. Now it's time to go somewhere else because I'm more excited about that problem. We'll compound there, but now you're starting to actually see like, oh wow, and you have a lot of people on your team that understand that too, and like then those compounds, it's exponential, right? It's like those people are compounding, you're doing the same thing, and to me, that's like the most humbling part of it. Is doesn't take anyone with a crazy background. I wish I started this out of college.
Now that you're beyond the 5-unit mark, you're at 6. Is there anything that you've learned, say on this later side of this run, that you're like, boy, if I could have had that asset at the beginning, that would obviously be helpful to a candidate that might be watching this?
Yeah. I think the thing that I've realized the most is running one is harder than running 6, right? Like, and you might have heard that before, and that might be a common thing, but there's something about like a team that comes together and increasing the surface area, right? Where it's like, hey, like, oh, now we have someone who's really good at this thing that I'm really bad at, right? And then we have some other person that's good at that thing that he's bad at or she's bad at. So I think that's the thing is like, I was willing to wear all the hats when I started, and I think that's what you have to do, and that was the right decision. But I've realized as I've kind of like scaled up, like, whoa, there are people out there that are much better at those specific verticals. And while I was going to be a jack of all trades, like having known that going in, I think I would have focused a little bit more on that of like, well, like I'm not that great at this. Like I should probably try to find someone really good on the education side because that's the thing that I'm missing.
I mean, it is such an honest statement. I think it's a very mature statement. And Kevin, I mean, you can probably see this with all the franchises that you've dealt with. Certainly some have that mindset. And frankly, that those that can, and we said this at the beginning of this, those that can remove the emotional side of operating a business and then understand your role and responsibility and what your expertise is and build around you, end up being the ones that can scale beyond that 5-unit mark, because it's a very small percentage of franchisees that can actually make that happen. Any other comments that you want to add, Kevin, on what makes an Andrew or the next Andrew even possible?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, there's maybe just a couple of key factors that are indicative or help predict success in a franchising model. I think for us, it's adherence to the proven business model, right? We've got over 1,200 locations at this point. We'd like to think that we know what we're doing a little bit, and so to the extent that you're able to lean in and kind of go on that ride with us and deploy the playbook, you'll be able to find success, right? And so I can't remember which franchisee said it, but the quote that sticks with me is the secret sauce of being a Mathnasium franchisee is to follow what the franchisor has in place, right? Second point I would say is just effective team building and delegation, right? Especially for multi-unit operators. Like Andrew said, the key is building a strong team, especially a strong leadership team, and then owners kind of emphasizing hiring center directors or assistant center directors to manage the day-to-day operations, freeing themselves up to focus on business growth and community engagement, which Andrew obviously does really well. And then, maybe last point that I'll make is really just a reiteration of Andrew's point. And I think about it as basically aligning strengths and outsourcing weaknesses. And so, from my perspective, the best franchisees know their strengths and outsource or hire for everything else, right? So Becky McDaniel is one of our franchisees in Florida. She said, if you're not experienced in education but like the business model and are good with books, you handle the books and then you hire others to do the tutoring, right? Or if you're kind of not comfortable being at the front of the center and doing the selling and greeting kids and parents, then you hire for somebody who's maybe more extroverted, who can be the face of the center, right? So I think as long as you kind of tick through those things, and they're all things that we cover as part of our training and onboarding process, you'll be able to find success.
I mean, first of all, I'm grateful for this conversation. I love the stories like yours, Andrew. It's awesome to see the scale, and it's great. And obviously it's circumstantial. If someone is a little bit older, their sense of urgency on the value of the dollar might be a little bit different, which might slow down their scale. But for over 2 years, for you to go to 1 to 6, like I can see, the long-term turn that eventually unit 1 will kick off the cash that you want. And then as you scale this on, unit 2 will. And it might be tight from a capital standpoint to deploy all this capital back into a business for a while, but then you get to the return side. And I think so many, if I'm advising a franchisee, so many franchisees understand the term return on investment. Very few understand investment on return, and that you can't get to return without the investment part. And I can see like you are really taking a business approach to it. Again, like I love the single unit franchisees or the onesie twosie franchisees just the same, because they were willing to invest their life savings into it. I really like hearing the stories of someone that was fearless and took the jump. And again, like you won't take the credit that I'm giving you, but I think it's really cool to see.
No, I'm humbled by it, man, and I'm definitely feeling it right now. Like you hit the nail on the head. I mean, you've been doing this for a while, so you could probably see it pretty clearly, see the forest through the trees. But for me, yeah, it's like every month I'm like, okay, like I gotta make payroll. I gotta make it's tough, right? Because for me, to your point, I don't need that much to live. My fiance and I rent our apartment. I have a pretty low cost life, so everything that I bring in, I put back into the business, and I think that is a luxury, and I'm aware of that privilege because of the time that I got in. So I think, like, honestly, even hearing this conversation makes me think, man, like I wish this was a more common like opportunity or path when you're younger, because you have time on your side, and you're able to reinvest everything. And when your cost of living isn't that high, and like you care a lot about growing the business, then it enables you to do that. So yeah, I haven't felt that return yet, Nick, but I appreciate you kind of hoping for me too.
I mean, your set sounds beautiful, and the other return, and again, something that you might not take the time to pinch yourself on it. The reality is, and it's what Kevin said, there are some people that get into the burger, or whatever, the chicken businesses. The impact certainly feeds a need in some capacity, but not the impact that you're having. And to have 6, like if you were to zoom out and say, look at all the children's lives that we have made a difference in, and we're building a business portfolio, like the and part, when you can align something that just has such purpose and impact back to the financial side, it makes what you end up earning feel so much better and complete. And whether that makes people or give the people the ability to sleep at night differently or not, I don't know. But my perception is it does, because it's so powerful on the economies of scale, both in the business side and what you're able to do from impact to humans. And again, I'm grateful for these conversations. This is why I get up every day. I love these things. So Andrew, thanks for sharing your story.
No, thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah, and Kevin, anything in closing?
No, look, I mean, I think if people are listening to this and they feel compelled and they can relate to, Andrew's story, or any other folks out there, who might have heard of Mathnasium or have kids or family members who have attended and just want to learn more, feel free to reach out. We're always here, and happy to tell you more.
I love it. For Kevin and Andrew, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Franchise.